Hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We are going to talk about online mentorship and cover all the angles. So can online mentorship really grow your career? We will try to answer this question with the help of Sarah and Sherry, and they will share their views immediately. But before we get started, just a few things. This webinar will be recorded. And also, if you look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you will see chat. So feel free to have conversations there. Plus, my adorable colleague Livia is there in the chat too. So if you have any problems, just give her a shout. And also, you will see questions down there. So please ask your questions in there instead of in the chat, because it will make things simpler for Sarah and Sherry when they will answer them towards the end of today's webinar. Now that we have all the engines running before the liftoff, let's do a little icebreaker. So we have a Slido here, and we would like to know who's your favorite movie character mentor? Now, let's see. Please type on the screen, who's your favorite movie character mentor? Good. So we have Sirius Black, Success, The Godfather, Yoda, Splinter. I have Yoda and Splinter just behind me. Guidance. Wow, excellent. So many great picks. Okay. So we give it another minute in case someone is still typing. Dumbledore, how cool is that? Okay, I think we can proceed now. So, yeah, all righty. Now, Sarah and Sherry will take the scene and they will absolutely rock the day. So a big welcome to you ladies. Now, Sarah, the stage is yours and you can do your magic.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to talk to you all today. So I am Sarah. I am a senior UX writer at GymPass. I'm also a mentor through ADP List and the UX Writing Hub. But I've only been a UX writer for the most recent phase of my career. And before I became a UX writer, I worked in a chocolate factory. I worked in an animal hospital. I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to change the slides and it's not working. Um, Give me 1 second here. Okay, so I worked at an animal hospital. I worked, it went away again. There we go. Okay, and then I worked at an animation production company, and it was like an animation digital media production company. And when I was at the animal hospital and the chocolate factory, they both sound like kind of fun jobs, but I was actually extremely miserable. And it got to the point where it was like affecting my emotional and also my physical health. Like I was so unhappy that I wouldn't go to sleep at night because I knew that the next thing that was going to happen was I was going to wake up and have to go back to work. So that's obviously not a sustainable way to live your life. But I think like a lot of people from my generation and earlier, we always grew up hearing like, don't be a quitter. So I really tried to stick it out, and I did for years and years. But you know, it got to the point where I was like, actually slowly killing me. So that's when I started working at the media company, and I super loved it there. It was the first time that I had ever enjoyed actually going to work. And for the first 10 years of my professional life, like, I was so miserable. And whenever I would complain about work, people would always say things to me like, well, that's why they call it work. Or, like, sorry you have a bad manager or your coworkers are bullying you, but it's like that everywhere. But at this new job, I was like, it's not like that here. It's not like that everywhere. This is a huge lie. And I really bought into it. So having that realization that it is in fact not like that everywhere is a huge motivator for me in terms of mentorship. I really, really care about helping other people transition into better careers so that they can live better lives because I really know what it feels like to feel like you are stuck in an untenable situation. But so anyway, while I was working at the production company, two kind of really pivotal things happened for me there. One was that in my main role, I was the executive assistant to the CEO, and we had an open plan office. So I sat pretty close to him and I could hear everything he was saying to everybody. And he would take meetings with just about anyone, whether they were like established industry professionals or people just starting out in their careers or even just fans. And people almost always left his office feeling like inspired and empowered. And I thought that was really cool to see. And I asked him one time, like, why do you spend so much of your time meeting with nobodies? And he said, well, that's ridiculous because everybody is a nobody when they're starting out. And he was a nobody himself until somebody helped him. And he felt like he had a responsibility now that he was successful to help other people do the same thing. But the other side of it is that you also never know when a nobody is going to be the next big somebody. And this is a true story about that company. He had an intern working for him who was just, some young kid working part time, making minimum wage, doing some social media stuff. And they needed a blog where they were going to announce like news about animators and projects they were working on. And the blog platforms that were around at the time weren't very visual, so they didn't really work well for the company. So he was like, hey, intern, figure out some way to make us a visual blog. So he was like, okay, no problem. I'll build something. So he did, and what he created was Tumblr. And so he went from being an intern to being, the founder of a very successful, like multi-million dollar business. So the other thing that happened was that I was sort of surrounded with all of these young creative people. They were like 10 years younger than me, and they were doing creative work that they were passionate about and making more money than I was. And while I really liked working at that company, I didn't really like what my job was. I was doing administrative stuff, and it was kind of like that's fine for some people, but it was boring to me. Um, and once I got over being sort of jealous of my coworkers, I started to do a lot of research into different fields and think like, how can I be more passionate about what it is that I'm doing? And that's when I discovered UX writing and I just instantly fell in love with it. And that's when I really began my career transition. But as probably many of you know, career transitions are super hard. Job searching under the best of circumstances is difficult. But when you're coming in from a totally different career, it can feel impossible. And on top of that, I'm an introvert and I have a fair amount of social anxiety. So something I struggle with is asking for help. So of course I was starting to do everything on my own and I didn't even really know where to begin and I was like learning a lot and I was practicing, but I had no real sense of is what I am doing real or is it like a bunch of made up nonsense and recruiters are laughing at me? Like I have no idea. So I tried doing it on my own for like a year. I applied to literally hundreds of jobs and got exactly zero responses. So I was like, this is not working. And I had to push myself out of my comfort zone to start working with mentors and talking with industry professionals. And once I started talking to people who are actually doing that work already, it was so much easier and faster to identify my knowledge gaps and start filling them in. And after about 6 months of working with mentors, I landed my first full-time role. And I can't promise that kind of timeline for anyone else, but for me, it was at least twice as fast once I involved mentors, and maybe even faster because I don't actually know if I would have ever made it there if I continued doing what I had been doing all by myself. Anyway, so now that I'm more established in my career, I'm very happy to be able to pay it forward. And I've been mentoring people for over a year now through ADP List, as well as the UX Writing Hub, and then also just on LinkedIn, anyone can talk to me. And I'm sort of taking a page out of my old boss's book, and I will talk to anybody if they want to. So now I assume that everyone who's here kind of understands that mentorship can help them in some way, but how do you actually do it? Step one is to find a mentor. And for me, this was always the hardest part, but it really doesn't need to be because potential mentors are really all around you. If you're a student, you may have someone like an academic advisor or a teacher that you really like, and you can work with them, start building a closer relationship by like going to office hours or letting them know what your goals are beyond their course and ask them, what can I do next? And they'll be able to point you in the right direction. If you have a job, you may work at a company where either someone else on your team or in another department is doing work that you admire, and you can let them know that, and then ask them questions about, how you can get to the same place where they are. Like if you want to work in a management role, you can find a manager who you think is good, and you say, "Hey, I think you're a really good manager. What is the like number one skill I should cultivate so that I can also be a good manager?" You can ask your friends if they know someone who's working in the same field that you're interested in. And that's a really great way to get connected with mentors because if you have a mutual connection, they're much more likely to want to talk to you. I know that was sort of the first way that I started working with mentors. I talked to a lot of friends when I was moving into UX. LinkedIn is another great place to find professionals in your industry. You can look up companies that you want to work for and find the people who are doing the work that you want to do, and then reach out to them, start a conversation. But if you're like me and you're more socially anxious, ADP List can be a great way to get started. There's a ton of people on there who are there because they're saying like, "Hey, I want to be a mentor." So all of that pressure is removed and you just go find someone and you book a session and that's it. So now that you have a mentor, how can you actually get the most out of that relationship? Well, the first thing is that you're probably going to want to talk to at least a few different people. Finding someone you really connect with is important. So you're going to have to talk to several people before you find that person that you want to dig deeper with. And during that time, it's totally fine to meet with like 10, 20 different mentors just one time. But ultimately, you should probably aim to have like one or two people that you're going back to time and time again. You need to be really the driver of the mentorship. If you want to get something out of it, you have to put something into it. So your mentor is there to help guide you in the right direction, but you're really the person who needs to be taking the steps forward. And to that end, you can leverage your mentor for resources to do that. Ask them what you could learn or pursue outside of your sessions. They can also help you get introduced to other people in your field. And that can be great for both networking and also finding another mentor if you feel like maybe this isn't the person you want to be like your one deep relationship person. Do make sure that you're respectful of their time. So that means both showing up, but it also means be prepared for your sessions. Have an agenda. I don't know what's happening here. There we go. Have an agenda or at least one topic that you want to discuss. Try not to have like 80 questions because you'll never go through it all, but really have an idea of a goal that they can help you toward. When you're just starting out, sometimes maybe that's the hardest part. Like maybe you don't know what your goal is yet. But at that point, that could be when you're meeting with those like 10 different people just one time to ask questions like, can you share your career journey with me? Or how did you get into your field? What is your day-to-day look like in this role? And that can help you kind of gel some ideas and see if that career path really feels right for you. But don't ask for favors or referrals right away, especially if you've cold emailed someone. This can be pretty off-putting, and the person might feel bad that they're not able to help. And it's not a great way to start a relationship. You have to really build up to it. Don't forget to thank them for their time, which you'll, of course, do during your session. But it's a really good idea to follow up with a thank you note afterwards, especially when you first met someone. And while I have never once thought poorly of someone who did not send me a thank you note, I am much more likely to remember the person who did send me the thank you note because it makes a really good impression and it helps you start off that relationship on a really positive note. And if you want that mentor to later be that person that you go back to time and time again, or if you want them to give you a job referral, that's the kind of relationship you're going to need to build. And then, don't let them forget about you. So beyond just sending the thank you note, follow up with them in a few weeks. Let them know what you've been up to. How has their advice helped you so far? Make a plan for a follow-up session. Every time I talk to a mentee, I always finish the session with, please keep in touch and let me know how everything's going. And I would say less than 10% of my mentees ever do actually follow up. And I really remember the 10% who do. I know their names. I know what their portfolios look like. I know the problems they're facing. So the next time we talk, it's really easy to give them like valuable feedback. Whereas the other 90%, maybe in a year, they come back to me and they say, like, hey, remember we talked that time? And I don't. Um, so once you're a bit more established in your field, or just if you have knowledge to share, I really, really encourage everyone to become a mentor. Um, the first reason is that you can learn as much from your mentees as they learn from you. Every time someone asks you a question, that's an opportunity for you to learn something, especially when you don't know the answer to it. Then you can go learn that thing together. Mentorship is also a really sought after leadership skill. So if you want to move into a management position, but maybe you've never had direct reports before, mentorship is a parallel skill that can help you move into those kinds of roles. You'll also be shaping the next generation of people in your field, which is really cool because work is just so much better when the people around you are talented. And so one way to create that environment for yourself is by cultivating talent in people who are just entering the field. Um, Not only would you be able to hire this person once if your team is ever hiring, but even if they don't end up working for you directly, you'll have helped add really good talent to the industry, which kind of raises the bar for everyone. There's also sort of selfish networking reasons. Not only can you hire this person, but if you remember what my old boss said to me is that you never know when a nobody is about to become the next big somebody. So you might have a mentee who is struggling right now, who's out of work and looking for help, but in a few years down the road, they could easily end up in a position to help you out. And this is kind of the most important one to me. It's just an amazing feeling when one of your mentees reaches out and says, like, I just got my first job offer, or, I got a promotion. All of their successes like that are yours too, and it really just feels awesome. So if you are interested in becoming a mentor, it's super easy to get started. It's probably way easier to get started as a mentor than as a mentee because all you really need to do is like put that out there in the world that I'm ready to talk to people and people are going to be lining up at your door. So there's two free and easy ways to do it, either ADP List or LinkedIn. Um, you really just have to put yourself out there and people are going to show up and they're hungry for the knowledge that you have to share. So I really encourage you to share it when you can. Um, there are a lot of other ways to mentor or find a mentor, and I believe Sherry is going to be touching on some of those as well. So I'm going to turn things over to her.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. That was some great advice for everyone starting out with as a mentor or a mentee. I actually had the movie character mentor question here, so maybe we can repeat it, Savian. Well, the question was, who's your favorite movie character mentor?
Yeah. So let's do this slide exercise again with this question in mind, because we somehow,
Okay.
we somehow messed the questions, and also because more people have joined in the meantime.
All right.
Um,
So I'll repeat the question and you can leave your answers in the chat. Who's your favorite movie character mentor? Okay, more Dumbledore. Colonel Slade, Scarlett O'Hara. She was one of my favorites. I watched Gone with the Wind 20 times at least. Mr. Miyagi, Patch Adams. Safian, do you think you can help me play the video of some famous mentors on the big screen?
Some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Don't ever let somebody tell you you got a dream, you got to protect it.
Unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No! Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
Why then did the Sorting Hat place you in Gryffindor?
Because I asked it to.
Exactly, Harry, exactly. Which makes you different from Voldemort. It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Awesome! How did you do that?
Inner peace.
Inner peace. That's cool.
Thanks, Safian. So, mentorships are a tool that are often used on the big screen, right? We often see these characters, they have mentors, and it kind of helps them become better versions of themselves. It helps them reach their potential, it helps them listen to their brave voice, it helps them kind of take the next step to grow up a little bit, to man up a little bit. But what if Master Shifu mentored Harry Potter? Do you think Harry Potter would become the wizard that he eventually grew to be? So that brings us to today's topic. Can online mentorship really grow your career? Yes, it can. As Sarah shared, online mentorship is rewarding, it's enriching, it's connecting. But for it to grow your career, once you're past the initial steps, you need to approach mentorship strategically and find the right mentor. Let me begin by introducing myself. I'm Sherry. I'm 50% mentor, 50% mentee, just like Sarah. I mentor on UX writing, content design, and strategy, and I get mentored on design ops, project management, and UX leadership. So, how do you find the right mentor online? Going back to my earlier metaphor of Master Shifu and Harry Potter, Master Shifu is really wise, yeah? I don't know how many of you watched the movie, but he's one of my favorite mentors on the big screen, and he's really wise. I'm sure his wisdom wouldn't get lost on Harry Potter. But Harry Potter wanted to become a better wizard. So he'd probably need a mentor from the wizarding world, yeah? It's as simple as that. So the first step to find the right mentor online is make sure you're looking in the right place. For UX professionals like me and Sarah, ADP List and UX coffee hours work great. If you're in marketing, you can consider Growth Mentor or Mentor Cruise. If you're an entrepreneur, you can try Sparrow or you can try Founders Network. Even for developers, there are websites like Code Mentor. Mentorship is a buzzword these days. There are lots of resources online. So you just got to find the right site for you and the right site for your industry and start looking there. All right, now I'm going to share a little bit about my journey. So I figured out the first step in mentorship quite easily. I was working as a freelance writer for many years and then as a freelance writer, and I wanted to become an in-house UX writer. So I kind of figured out that ADP List was the place for me to find a mentor. And like I said, mentorship was a buzzword. I kept hearing it in conferences and postcards. You need in podcasts that you need to find a mentor to kind of figure out your next steps, get some direction, figure where you need to go. I also wanted to know everything that everyone had to offer. So I would follow this list. I would search for UX writers on ADP List. I would schedule a session week after week, and I would ask a lot of general questions. I would ask people about their career path. I would ask them to evaluate my writing samples or my portfolio. I would ask for advice. I would ask for resources. And it was enriching, like human connection often is. But I also got a lot about hearing what person A does. I also got to hear a lot about what person B's career path was like. I also got a lot of nudges and a lot of daydreaming where I would sit there and hear someone else's story and be like, hey, could I do something like that? But I wasn't necessarily getting better at my current job, which was what I actually needed at that point. This is kind of like the advice that I got. Work freelance, work in-house, work on your portfolio, work on your interview skills, more case studies, less case studies, because I work in tech, and tech is really vast, especially for UX writers. Depending on the organization, UX writers wear a lot of different hats. So what is one UX writer in one department can look really different from what one UX writer is in another department. But the more sessions I did, again, similar to what Sarah mentioned, I went through my first 10 mentors, actually more like 100, and then I kind of figured out what worked. So today I'm going to share with you some of the tips that I've learned along the way of being a mentee, more than being a mentor. So tip 1 is find mentors in the same region or industry. I work in Asia and health tech. Our work culture, the speed of work, and our organizational hierarchies are quite different from US or Europe. Okay, it's quite fast-paced. It's a different dynamic at work. So when I speak to other mentors who work in my region, I tend to get a lot more valuable feedback. Similarly, when I speak to UX writers who are working in health tech, I manage to touch topics that are very important to my industry. We talk about compliance standards, content op practices, design workflows, and things that are relevant to me. Tip 2, set a balance between the personal and professional. This is something that I think I only learned a few months into my mentorship. Initially, I would approach each mentorship session with, how do I grow my career? What do I do next? but I wasn't using my mentorship sessions to actively tackle problems at work. Things like, how do I improve collaboration? How do I add some input as my UX designer? How can I be an earlier part of the process? So when I went in trying to tackle problems at work, I actually got really, and after a while, I realized that I didn't just need to talk to UX writers. I could talk to anyone in product. My voice is buffering. Is it the same for everyone else? All right. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. So I realized that I didn't have to just talk to UX writers. When I posed the question, how do I improve collaboration, to a UX manager, I actually got a lot of helpful feedback because they gave me advices from all ends of the spectrum. So just because you want to develop as a UX writer, it doesn't necessarily mean that you other UX writers. You can talk to UX designers about some feedback that you give to writers on their team. You could talk to product managers, how they work with UX writers. You can get tips from different types of professionals. And websites like ADP List, UX Coffee Hours for UX are great because you can reach out to these people and give them your questions, and they'll be more than happy to give you feedback. Basically, asking a mentor how they would solve your problem gives you a lot of insight and experience from their side. Tip 3, plan ahead and set an agenda for each session. So this is something that Sarah already mentioned. It
Yeah, it looks like Sherry has some internet connection problems at the moment. Let's wait a bit to see if she can refresh the page. You are back, Sherry?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
I
all
didn't
good.
realize I got disconnected. Okay, are we on the right slide?
Yeah, you can repeat from tip 3.
Okay, so basically setting an agenda before each session allows you to come prepared and allows your mentor to come prepared. It doesn't have to be too complicated. If you're looking for advice on your portfolio, send your portfolio a few days beforehand, set a few discussion points so your mentor comes prepared as well to your session. Yeah. If you have agreed on a few sessions with your mentor, what you can do is you can plan it out together. For instance, if you're working on personal development skills, you can cover communication skills in one session, effective behaviors on another one, soft skills on the other, and so on. If you can somehow prepare a doc where you have meeting minutes and where you write down what you're covering in each session, that will also help your mentor pick up right where you left off. Tip 4, don't vent and keep it simple. Okay. A mentor-mentee relationship is a professional relationship, yeah? And when we talk about our work problems, when we talk about our organization, we don't really need to mention names. We don't need to mention specifics. We can keep it simple. We can talk about the crux of the problem. We can talk about the exact outcomes that we are trying to change. And we can keep it simple. So we can cover 1 or 2 topics. You can't possibly scratch the surface of 10 problems at once. So be specific about what you're really trying to solve and share it with your mentor. Okay. Tip 4. Yeah. What's happening here? Okay, tip 5, keep it going with mentors that work. For me personally, I learned more from regular sessions with the same mentor than by continuously switching mentors. And what also helped for me is that after a while, I was able to get feedback. So I was able to share a problem, share how it went, and my mentor was able to give me honest feedback on what I could improve on. Similarly, as I developed a friendship And just like any relationship, we developed honesty and comfort in our relationship. I was able to give my mentor feedback as well on what I needed more of. I wasn't shy to speak up that, hey, I would like you to focus a little bit on my communication skills, what I can improve on. I came out of my shell, and that allowed our mentorship relationship to go to the next level. And the last tip is always repeat back the advice that you get. So, like any teacher, any mentor, everyone loves hearing back that you've accurately listened and paid attention to the feedback and the advice that they shared with you. If you can come back to a mentorship session with actual stories and data about how you implemented their advice, what worked, what didn't work, you will see your mentorship relationship go to the next level. Okay, that's it for me today. So these days, from having 100 mentors, I have 2 to 3 regular mentors. I have 2 that help me problem solve my current problems at work. And I have 1 that helps me grow professionally and figure out my next steps. Where do I want to go next in my career? What do I need to develop for that? So to conclude, I'm going to leave you with a quote. When you need to learn quickly, learn from others. When you need to learn deeply, learn from experience. Now, can you imagine learning from someone else's experience and then ask yourself, can online mentorship really grow your career? Okay, Savin, I think we can move over to Q&A.
Yeah, so right now we should see the questions popping up on the screen. You can take them as you please. Can you see the first question?
Yeah, I can see it. I'll go first. So I think
Yeah.
probably
Just
the
one question. Please read it out loud before.
So
Okay.
what are some common mistakes that mentees make, and how can you avoid them to get the most out of your mentorship experience? So I think the big one is just being sort of unprepared. So and there's kind of 2 facets to it. So the first thing is that you have to have some kind of goal in mind that you're like you need something that you're working toward, because otherwise the mentor can't help you get there. There's nothing for them to do if you don't have a goal in mind. And then once you have that goal in mind, think about things that you want to talk about. And if you can have those topics prepared in advance, that can really help the mentor give you the best advice or give you the best path forward.
All right, I think I'll go next, Sarah, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
I would say etiquette. You know, if I take my time to mentor you, I would like you to show up on time. I would like you to turn on your camera. You know, these little things, basically, a simple thank you. Not looking for much out there, but these basic etiquettes really gets you far. When I recently mentored someone. She's a fresh graduate, and she wasn't prepared because she wanted to hear what I said, which was fine with me. But she was so respectful of my time. She immediately scheduled a session the following week, and she really took what I said and tried to actively change it. So I think it's also like what Sarah shared in her presentation, that people who just take the advice and they never come back. So we're curious. We mentor because we're curious to know what you're doing next and how we can help you next. So another common mistake would be not coming back.
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to take this
Sure.
one? Okay.
How can mentorship help you develop soft skills such as communication, networking, and leadership that are critical to career success? For me, mentorship kind of makes me connected to my roots, why I do what I do, why my understanding is what it is. So I really love working with interns or fresh graduates because when I sit there and they ask me, how do I problem solve this? And I give them my solution, um, maybe sometimes I forget why I got to the solution space in the first place. But when I find myself repeating this advice back to a mentor, I realize I need to connect the dots for them. And that's how it helps me develop things like communication, networking, and leadership. Because if I can't communicate my ideas or my solutions to someone who doesn't have any idea about it, I'm probably not doing a very good job convincing anybody else either. Sarah, over to you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. For me, as I mentioned, like I'm an introvert and I have social anxiety, so meeting with strangers on the internet is already forcing me to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and practice skills like communication. And it's very similar to networking in that way. Like not when you're at the point where you have like that deeper relationship where you have one or two mentors who you're going back to again and again for specific goals. But when you're at that point where you're like, I'm going to meet with a ton of people, I'm just going to hear about their career journey, that's networking. It might not be the most effective networking, but it's there. And then on the leadership side, um, as I mentioned, like mentorship is very much a parallel skill with leadership. So when you're helping somebody like problem solve or develop in their own careers, that's a leadership skill. I think that's it. Let's see another question. How to get into the field of UX writing? I think, that's a big question. But mentorship is a great way to get into it, I think. You have to do a lot of learning on your own if it's not something that you're familiar with, like learn about UX, learn about writing, learn a little bit about design, and work with a mentor.
Yeah, I think UX writing is probably one of those professions where you could gain a lot from mentorship because especially in UX writing, I think all the mentors available on UX Coffee Hours or ADP list, everyone's so willing to share resources, knowledge, tidbits, whatever they can help to get you to where you need to be in UX writing. Um, how to get into the field of UX writing? There are lots of job boards out there. Um, it really doesn't take much to advance, I think, but it is hard to get started. So maybe start with something small, start with freelance, and eventually you should be able with mentorship to reach the positions that you want.
Oh, can a mentor help you identify and overcome limiting beliefs or self-doubt that may be holding you back in your career? So absolutely yes, but also no. So a mentor is not going to show up and like change your whole personality and your whole mind. So, a lot of that is internal stuff. Um, that's who you are as a person. I mean, imposter syndrome is like a very real thing that some people suffer from. And it's beyond just being like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm good at this. It's like having a lot of evidence that you are good at it and still not believing that you are good at it or that you belong. Your mentor cannot solve that for you. They are not your therapist. However, um, meeting with a mentor can give you a perspective. So one of the things I mentioned was that when I was starting out, I really didn't have any kind of context for like I didn't know what it was like to do this professionally. So I was like, doing like writing challenges and like coming up with like my own projects and doing case studies. And I was like, I feel like this is good, but maybe it's terrible. And I just have no idea. And then when I started meeting with mentors and they were like, no, 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 you're doing it. This is UX writing, what you are doing. That did immediately assuage a lot of my like negative feelings and my limiting beliefs. And then I was like, okay, like it's not perfect, but at least I was on the right track. And now that I'm learning more, like this is it. So that did really help me from holding myself back. But like I said, we're not therapists, so you have to do a lot of that work on your own.
Yeah, if I were to add on that, it really depends on who your mentor is and what you're sharing. Like, there's only so much a mentor can see from 30 minutes or 1 hour sessions that you have on, on an online website. But that being said, if you are part of a professional mentorship program, like the kind that I run at work, or if you're part of an organization that offers like a long-term mentorship program that's say 6 months or 4 months, your mentor will probably be able to give you a lot more personal development skills there. Okay, I'll take this one. How exactly can you use mentorship to gain exposure to new industries or fields and potentially open up new career opportunities? It's a loaded question. Let me read it again. How exactly can you use mentorship to gain exposure to new industries or fields and potentially open up new career opportunities? Okay. Um, I personally, I think I shared this during my share as well, but you don't need to talk specifically to a UX writer to get better at UX writing. When you are part of a product team or when you're part of an industry, different professionals will also point you out with skills to improve overall as a contributing team member, as a member of your organization. That might open you up to different opportunities that might pique your interest in other industries. You can also use mentorship to learn more about the skills of, say, a UX designer or a product manager, if that's something that you're interested in. You might be a bit doubtful to ask those questions at work, but on websites like ADP List, UX Coffee Hours, it's an open space, right? You're free to ask the questions that you want and explore other interests.
Yeah, I just to add to that, that's like that time when you can go and talk to different people who are doing different kinds of work, and it doesn't have to be online either. If you meet someone at a party and they have an interesting job, ask them about their job. Um, if people even go to parties anymore. But online mentorship is the same thing. Like if you are talking to somebody with an interesting job, ask them a ton of questions about it, and that can open up maybe not opportunities right away, but it can open up your mind to the possibilities that exist in different fields and in different industries. At what point in your career did you want to become a mentor, and is it ever too early? For me, it was pretty early on. It was like almost right after I got like hired as a full-time employee, like after I like transitioned out of freelance and was like an established employee. Um, at that point, like I didn't necessarily want to mentor people on being like an expert UX writer, but I wanted to help people who were going through career transitions. And that was something that I had knowledge about because I had just done it. So I think it's never too early. If you have knowledge that you want to share, put that out in the world and share that knowledge.
Totally agree with Sarah. For me personally, I waited quite a while to mentor. It was what finally made me put my name on ADP list, though I do mentor at work, I've always done that, but to finally put my name on ADP list and take and be open to mentorships on LinkedIn as well was when one of my mentors helped me solve a huge problem at work. And I was so happy after that, I was like, I have to pay this forward. So that's when I decided to become a mentor. It was a bit late, but I eventually got there, and now I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me was like networking is really hard for me because of my social anxiety, and like doing things like trying to find a mentor was always this like hugely daunting task. And so once I got into a position where I thought I had something worthwhile to share, I was like, what I'm going to do is just go in my LinkedIn profile. I'm just going to put my Calendly link and say, go ahead and book a session. You don't even have to talk to me first. Because that was like the scariest part, was like reaching out to somebody and figuring out what to say and then asking them for help. Like that was really scary. So I was just like, if you're scared to talk to me, like you can just put your information here and then we'll book a session and we'll talk.
All right. The next question. How would you define the difference between networking and mentorship? I think there's a gray area where it probably could overlap, but with networking, you're seeking to grow professional connections. With mentorship, I think the goal is always learning, yeah, learning and knowledge. So, two different things: connection, building your connections, and mentorship learning. So, again, they can take two very similar paths with the way they play out, but I think the original goal is different. So, if you're thinking, do I need to network more or do I need more mentorships? Think about your goal.
Yeah, totally agree.
All right. Does your manager encourage you to mentor people inside your organization, outside of your organization? Why or why not? Can I go first, Sarah?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it is a mandate in my organization to mentor. We have a professional program that runs. I think, like Sarah mentioned earlier, mentorship is parallel with leadership. You, to be a good leader, I think in the tech industry especially, you need to be able to mentor. You need to be able to teach what you know to other people, and you need to be able to empathize with them and teach them your perspective and bring them into the same understanding. That's how you run a team effectively. So that's why at my organization, it's absolutely necessary for every leader to mentor.
Yeah, we have something similar at Gym Pass where we have both more formal like mentorship program where we can actually help people transition into different roles or grow in the role that they have. And that's sort of more formal. But then there's also like just an informal, like you work with a team of people. Like if you're a more senior person, you're just going to be sort of mentoring more junior people as a matter of course. Um, but we also do have a fairly like a fairly generous culture like among the design team. I know that there are a lot of product designers who also mentor outside of our organization, so it's something that a lot of people are doing. I think we kind of covered this one. If finding a mentor and networking are the same thing, or if you should approach them differently. They can be similar, especially when you're just getting started and you're kind of shopping around for the right mentor. It can be very similar to networking. Um, but with networking, you're really just kind of trying to make connections with people so that eventually you'll probably get a job. Whereas with mentorship, you are trying to upskill or, reach some other type of goal. Um, but I don't know. I think you can kind of approach the beginning stages of it in the same way.
Should we move to the next question? Okay, I have done my courses completed. I have practiced designing. I'm learning more on UX writing. I have my portfolio, but still unable to get into the field after applying constantly for the posts. Why is it so? Okay, I would love to help you tackle this. You can book my time on ADP
Yeah.
list. Maybe that would be a better avenue to tackle a question like this. You can book me or Sarah's time, and that would probably be a better avenue to tackle that.
Yeah, I was
And I
going
wish
to
you luck.
say the same thing. And yes, also it's hard and it takes a long time to find a job sometimes, but work with a mentor and maybe you'll get there faster.
All right, next question. Sarah, it's for you.
Yeah, as a mentor for UX Writing Hub, is it easy to balance your work with Gym Pass with your mentoring responsibilities? Absolutely. UX Writing Hub is a really great learning platform. If anyone's unfamiliar with it, it's specific to UX writers. So if that's not your jam, then it's not for you. But it's a really comprehensive course, and the mentors there are really dedicated. But it's a fairly workload, and they allow me to set limits on how many mentees I would like to take on at any one time. So I think right now I have anywhere between 2 and 4 who are like actively still, working on things, but it doesn't take that much of my time, to be honest.
Okay, I'll take the next one. I run a mentorship program for our team of designers. In your view, what discerns a mentor from a coach? Which is the best approach for a junior or mid designer to grow in their career? Okay, I'm not quite sure what type of online coaches are out there, but I'm assuming if you want a professional coach or some sort of corporate development coach, it's not going to be free, like mentorship often is. So what discerns a mentor from a coach? I'm assuming a coach is a lot more about motivation again, a lot more about motivation and progress, whereas a mentor is more about sharing knowledge and basically sharing experience as well.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add to this one. I'm not sure that there is really like an essential difference between a mentor and a coach. I think they're both kind of buzzwords that can mean whatever people want them to mean. Did we do it? Did we answer all of the questions? I did see one about the books behind me, and I will be very honest with you and let you know that I have read almost none of those books. Almost. I have read some of them. Most of them belong to my husband, who is a librarian and also a compulsive book collector. So
Safian should. So now we fill out the feedback.
So can you hear me now? Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a problem with the mic, so we are good now. Yeah, it looks we are done with the questions for today. Thank you, Sarah, Sherry, and all of you in the audience for this splendid webinar. Now, last but not least, we have a little form here that you can fill in on your way out. And please share your feedback because we would love to hear it from you. So yeah, share your thoughts. And thank you so much for joining us today. It was lovely to have you here. Sarah, Sherry, if you have one final word, shout it out.
I don't think I have anything left, but just thanks everyone for joining. It was really fun to talk to you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep. And thanks, Safian and team, for having us.
Yes.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. Okay, so thank you everyone, and yeah, we can wrap it up now. Have a good one, guys, and I hope to see you around soon to our next webinar.